The rain tapped softly on the windowpane as 27-year-old Samantha Ortiz closed her cafe in the heart of Asheville, North Carolina. It had been a long day, the kind that leaves you exhausted but content. She locked up, pulled her hoodie over her head, and began the short walk to her apartment. What Samantha didn't know was that someone had been watching her for weeks. Someone who believed he was smarter than everyone else. Someone who thought he was invincible. At 9:47 p.m., Samantha's neighbors heard a muffled scream. By the time they rushed out, it was too late. Samantha was found in her apartment's stairwell, her body contorted in a way that defied the peacefulness of the small town. There were no signs of forced entry, no witnesses, no clear motive, except for one disturbing detail. Propped next to her body was a smartphone, its screen still lit. A photo had been taken of her lifeless body, with the killer's hand flashing a peace sign next to her face. A selfie, and the killer wasn't wearing gloves. The news broke within hours. Killer takes selfie at murder scene, leaves phone behind. The image went viral, not because the media released it, but because the police confirmed its existence, and the arrogance behind it. Detective Elise Garvey had seen a lot in her 19 years on the force, but this case was different. It wasn't just the brutality, it was the killer's need to be seen, to be admired, even in murder. The phone was wiped clean, no SIM, no stored contacts, no fingerprints on the outer shell. But the photo was time-stamped, geotagged, and full of hidden metadata. The killer thought he was clever, but Vanity, Garvey believed, was his fatal flaw. Using facial recognition tools, the FBI isolated a reflection in the victim's eye from the selfie, enhanced by digital forensics. Grainy, but chilling. A jawline, a smirk, possibly glasses. Within a week, they had a lead, a photography student named Ethan Vale, known for his dark, avant-garde portfolio and his obsession with capturing raw humanity. He lived alone, had no alibi, and worse, his past was full of disturbing behavioral records from his college days. But when brought in for questioning, Ethan was calm. Too calm. And then he smiled, just like in the selfie. Ethan denied everything. Claimed he was editing photos at home the night of the murder. Claimed his camera gear was stolen months ago. Claimed he didn't know Samantha. But investigators weren't buying it. They subpoenaed his cloud storage and uncovered a chilling folder named Project Immortality. Inside were dozens of photographs, staged crime scene recreations, images of women sleeping in public places, photos taken through apartment windows. Ethan was spiraling deeper into a fantasy. He saw himself not as a killer, but as an artist, immortalizing moments of fear and beauty. And Samantha, tragically, had become his masterpiece. Just when detectives believed they had Ethan cornered, something unthinkable happened. A second murder, nearly identical. Another young woman, strangled, posed. Another selfie, this time, with the killer holding a single white rose. And again, the phone was left behind. This time, there were gloved fingerprints. The phone was newer. The killer had evolved, which meant only one thing. Ethan Vale might not be the only one. The discovery of a second selfie murder shattered the initial theory of a lone narcissist. Detectives began to wonder, was this a copycat feeding off media attention? Or worse, was there a group? They revisited Ethan's online activity and found a disturbing forum on the dark web, the Ascenders Club, a place where anonymous users praised murderers for aesthetic crimes, discussed perfect symmetry in death, and shared photos meant to immortalize decay. Some believed Ethan was a founder. Others called him Subject Zero. Samantha wasn't a one-off. She was a beginning. Behavioral analysts joined the investigation. Their conclusion was terrifying. This wasn't about rage, or revenge, or even thrill. It was about legacy. Whoever was behind these murders wanted to be remembered. He wanted his work to outlive him. His ego needed validation, and the internet gave it to him. The selfies weren't trophies. They were declarations, a modern form of signature, a digital monogram. And worst of all, the killer knew the police were watching. And he liked it. 2 weeks later, a third victim was found. Her name was Olivia Hartman, a community college student, a poetry major. Same pose, same lighting, same smirk from the killer. But this time, the phone was different. It had a pre-recorded audio message that autoplayed. Beauty is in the eye of the one who dares to capture it. You call me evil, but I'm an artist. You call them victims, but they are eternal now. The voice was processed, modulated, but chillingly confident. The killer was speaking to the world now, and the world was listening. As panic gripped the community, hashtags like #selfaslayer and #vanitykiller trended globally. True crime podcasts and YouTubers speculated wildly. Some even romanticized the murderer, comparing him to a modern Jack the Ripper with a phone. Police were furious. Detective Garvey appeared at a press conference. "This is not art. These are lives stolen, families broken, and justice will find the man behind this horror." But in the crowd, among journalists and onlookers, a figure stood still, phone in hand, watching, smiling. Nina Bell was supposed to be the fourth. She was walking home from work when a man approached her, complimented her scarf, and asked to take a photo of her for a street-style blog. Something felt off. His eyes were too eager. His hands didn't tremble. She declined. He followed her. 2 blocks. And then she ran. Nina reported the incident, and her description, height, mannerisms, phone case, matched the previous scene evidence almost exactly. The killer was getting sloppy. Or maybe, he was playing a much longer game. After Nina Bell's chilling encounter, forensic experts did a deep dive into the metadata of the phones left behind. One analyst, Maya Lin, found something everyone else had missed, a recurring signature buried in the GPS data. It wasn't coordinates, it was a digital watermark, almost like a personal tag, embedded in every photo. That watermark matched photos Ethan Vale had taken before the murders, but Ethan was still in custody. Someone had access to his devices, or had studied his style so closely, they were mimicking him down to the metadata. Was Ethan a mentor, a muse, or just the beginning? Detective Garvey returned to Ethan's cell. He hadn't spoken in days, but when shown the third victim's selfie, something changed. He laughed. "I told you I'm not the only one. I just knew how to frame the shot. But some people, they don't have the eye." It was cryptic, but also revealing. He was jealous, proud, competitive. And in that moment, it became clear, this wasn't just a crime spree. It was a contest, a twisted gallery where each murder was a canvas. And the killer's still out there. He wanted to outdo Ethan. Analysts began comparing the selfies side by side. Victims in identical positions. Framing almost perfect. But one small detail stood out. The lighting. Every victim had been lit using a soft blue hue, impossible to capture naturally. It suggested the killer used a specific brand of portable photography light. A deep search of recent purchases in North Carolina flagged 7 buyers. One of them, a freelance wedding photographer named Joel McCrae. No priors, no complaints, but he lived just 3 blocks from the last crime scene, and he had a locked shed in his backyard. When detectives arrived, Joel McCrae was calm, cooperative, and charming. He joked about being a suspect, even offered them coffee. But he refused to unlock the shed. Said it was private storage and that the key had been lost. Garvey wasn't buying it. A warrant was issued. They returned hours later. What they found inside would haunt them. A wall of selfies. Dozens. Women, unconscious or unaware. None of them knew they were being photographed. And in the center of the room, on a mannequin, was a recreation of Samantha Ortiz's final pose, complete with fake blood. Joel was arrested, but he didn't crack. Not at first. Then Garvey showed him a list of names, 7 women identified from the shed's photos. All had filed stalking complaints. All lived within a 10-mile radius. Joel blinked. "You don't understand," he said. "I wasn't going to hurt them. I was preserving them. They are beautiful when they don't know they are being seen." It was narcissism wrapped in delusion. Joel believed he was doing them a favor, but his digital devices told another story. One of those women had reported a break-in 2 months earlier. And her name? Nina Bell. Garvey returned with new evidence, a draft folder of emails written by Joel, unsent, each addressed to Dear Muse. They were disturbing, poetic, obsessive. In one, he wrote, "The shot has to be right this time. The light, the angle. If it works, they'll finally see I'm more than him. More than Ethan." He was competing, staging, planning a murder he hadn't yet committed. But who was next? Tucked at the end of the folder was a name. Nora, shoot at golden hour. She wears yellow. Nora Lawrence, a local art student. And she'd just posted a sunset selfie on Instagram, timestamped less than 30 minutes ago. Nora lived on the edge of the city, near an abandoned greenhouse, a perfect place for a shoot. Garvey and her team raced through traffic. They arrived just as the sun dipped behind the hills. Inside the greenhouse, silence. Then a scream. Nora was alive, tied to a chair, dazed but unharmed. Joel had been interrupted mid-scene. He fled on foot, dropped his camera bag. Inside, duct tape, rope, lighting gear, and a printed selfie of Samantha Ortiz. The caption scrawled on the back. "She made me start. Nora will make me finish." Joel was captured 3 hours later, hiding beneath a bridge. He resisted, then broke into tears. At the station, he confessed, but also unraveled. "I'm not a killer," he said. "I'm a student of beauty." When police searched his apartment, they found a journal, one that revealed his entire descent. He'd followed Ethan Vale's blog years ago, adored his photography, bought the same camera, the same light, even sent him fan messages under a fake name, Pixel Saint. Ethan never responded. So Joel became something else, the killer Ethan had pretended to be. The media had a field day. The selfie killer was a fanboy. Copycat killer worshipped murder artist. But underneath the headlines was a disturbing truth. Social media had enabled this. The dark web forums where murder was aestheticized. The viral content that made Ethan famous. The YouTube breakdowns that dramatized death. Joel wasn't born a monster. He was made, fed by attention, warped by validation, desensitized by internet culture. He didn't want to hurt people. He wanted to be seen. Joel was sentenced to life in prison. Ethan still awaits trial, his expression smug during every hearing. But the story didn't end there. 6 months after Joel's sentencing, a woman in Oregon found a phone in her mailbox. No message. No explanation. On it, a selfie of a woman asleep. The shot perfect. Lighting immaculate. And in the corner, reflected in a mirror, a man's face wearing glasses. Not Joel. Not Ethan. A third admirer? A new artist? Or the same game, starting all over again? The photo in Oregon reignited national panic. The woman in the selfie, 32-year-old Brielle Jensen, had no memory of the image being taken. She was alive, unharmed, but shaken. She remembered falling asleep on her couch after a long shift. That was all. No signs of forced entry. No missing items. Just the phone in her mailbox the next morning. Detective Garvey, now consulting for federal investigators, flew to Oregon. The metadata on the photo was hauntingly familiar. Same embedded watermark. Same resolution. Same camera model as Joel and Ethan had used. But this time, the style had evolved. Someone had learned from the others. The old dark web forum, the Ascenders Club, was supposedly shut down after Joel's trial. But now, investigators discovered a clone site, AscendX. It wasn't just active, it was thriving. Hundreds of users. Threads analyzing composition of real crime photos. Comments praising the Oregon piece for its subtle vulnerability. Even a poll. Who was more authentic, Joel or Ethan? But one user stood out, Ghost Frame. He wrote, "I've studied them all, but their ego made them sloppy. Mine is art without fingerprints, presence without evidence." He ended each post the same way. "One blink, and you're mine." Agents infiltrated AscendX. They traced several IPs to proxies and laid VPNs. But Ghost Frame's posts included links to a hidden gallery. In it, 6 women. All alive. All photographed while they slept. Different cities. Different states. Same blue lighting. Same signature angles. The FBI contacted the women. None knew they'd been photographed. And none had any idea how someone had entered their homes. One woman, Angela Ross, remembered waking up at 3:11 a.m. seeing a faint light, like a phone screen, and assuming it was a dream. It wasn't. She'd been catalogued. Like a painting. Analysts cross-referenced timestamps with public surveillance, phone data pings, and city Wi-Fi logs. They isolated a time window for Angela Ross's photo. At 2:53 a.m., a shadowy figure passed beneath a traffic cam 3 blocks from her apartment. Grainy, but enough for motion analysis. The figure limped. That small detail narrowed their search. A man matching the gait and build was seen on gas station CCTV a mile away, buying a disposable phone and duct tape. He paid in cash. Wore gloves. But he looked directly into the security camera. And smirked. Just like Ethan. The man in the CCTV was tall, pale, with sharp cheekbones. The footage was low-res, but facial recognition returned one possible match, Declan Rourke, a 38-year-old former crime scene cleaner. He had no priors, lived alone, worked irregular freelance jobs. had been fired years ago for unauthorized photography at scenes. His record showed multiple sealed HR complaints. No charges, no interviews. But one thing was consistent. Wherever he worked, a theft report soon followed. A missing ID, a camera, a phone, and most chilling, he once cleaned a scene linked to Ethan Vale's third victim. Agents raided Declan's rented cabin outside Spokane. Inside, they found a soundproofed room. Walls painted white. Ceiling rigged with professional lighting. On the floor, a worn rug covering blood-stained wood. In a drawer, over 700 printed photographs, meticulously sorted, labeled with dates and times. Every woman had been photographed asleep. Most were unharmed. But 5 of the images, stained with a strange red powder, featured unconscious women posed like dolls. It was a shrine, a dark, obsessive portfolio. But Declan was gone. And on the wall, scrawled in ink, "Perfection isn't taken. It's made." Declan had planned his disappearance well. But in one of the envelopes marked discard, analysts found a bus ticket stub to Salt Lake City and a crumpled receipt from a camera shop. Detectives spoke with the shop owner, who remembered Declan's intensity. Said he kept talking about depth of field and death and the eyes that tell the truth. The owner sold him a custom lens filter, one used to mimic old film grain. The receipt had Declan's alias, Peter Lauren. A new identity, a new city, and likely a new target. In Salt Lake City, a woman named Dana Whitmore reported something strange. She lived alone, worked from home. One morning, she woke to find her kitchen window unlocked. Nothing missing, no signs of a break-in. But her smart thermostat showed a temperature spike at 3:12 a.m., as if someone had briefly opened the front door. Police asked her to check her phone for unusual photos. Buried in her gallery was a shot she hadn't taken. It was of her, asleep on her couch. And on her lap, someone had carefully draped a yellow scarf she didn't own. A day after Dana's report, a flash drive arrived at the local station. Inside, one audio file. It began with footsteps, breathing, a click, like a shutter, then a whisper. "She sleeps like she's dreaming of me. All of them do. I don't steal. I preserve. I am ghost frame." Then silence. No background noise. No identifiers. But a faint hum, analyzed by audio engineers, matched the cooling unit from a specific warehouse district just outside the city. A warrant was issued immediately. They stormed the warehouse. Declan was there, waiting. Declan didn't resist. He smiled and whispered, "I wondered when you'd see the light." Inside the warehouse, hundreds of screens showing looping slideshows of sleeping women. Thousands of high-res images. A broadcasting rig connected to a dark web live stream. An audience of voyeurs who believed they were watching art. Declan gave no statement. He refused a lawyer, refused to speak. But in his notebook was one line, repeated 50 times. The others copied. "I completed." And taped to the final page, a Polaroid photo of Detective Garvey, asleep. Detective Elise Garvey stared at the photo of herself taped inside Declan Rourke's notebook. She had no memory of it being taken. But the timestamp embedded in the Polaroid's corner read 3:06 a.m., 4 days prior. That was the night she'd fallen asleep on her couch while reviewing Ethan Vale's case files. Her apartment building had security, coded doors, locked windows. But someone had been inside. Declan had been inside. This wasn't just about victims anymore. It was personal. Garvey sat across from Declan, separated by a table and an inch of plexiglass. "Why me?" she asked. Silence. "Why them?" Still silence. Then, Declan leaned forward and mouthed a single word: symmetry. He refused to elaborate. But analysts found something horrifying in his collected work. A file labeled, Fractal Collection. Each victim was positioned to mirror the one before, all building toward a final piece. Garvey was the center of the pattern. Just when the investigation seemed to close, a disturbing development unraveled. 3 women, one in Nevada, one in Georgia, and one in Ontario, reported break-ins. Same pattern. No theft. Just strange items placed nearby. Blue lighting. Subtle repositioning of furniture. And in 2 cases, photos appeared days later, mailed in plain brown envelopes, postmarked from multiple cities. A new pattern. A new player. No. Worse. Multiple copycats. The ghost frame cult had spread, fueled by Declan's digital shrine, archived by thousands. Despite being secured, portions of Declan's database leaked onto message boards and private encrypted channels. People began reenacting poses. True crime fanatics turned into sick admirers, calling his gallery a masterclass in psychological immersion. Some collectors began swapping selfies like currency. Garvey pushed for a digital manhunt. A national task force was formed to hunt the group calling themselves the Watchers. But they had no central leadership, no real names, no ideology, just one rule: capture beauty in silence. Never steal, only frame. An agent embedded into a Sendex noticed something strange in the selfies posted by new users. In the background of some photos, a face was faintly visible in reflections, the same face across multiple states. Not the subject, not the photographer, someone else, a man with a long scar across his left cheek. The photos weren't just about the victims. They were also a message. He was in every one of them, watching the Watchers. The scarred face was finally matched to a drifter named Mason Trigg, a former photojournalist dishonorably discharged from the military for photographing wounded soldiers without consent. He'd vanished 5 years ago, but a recent tip placed him in Detroit, working in a print shop under an alias. Agents raided the building. Trigg was gone, but inside a storage locker was an envelope addressed to Detective Garvey. Inside, a single line written in red ink. He framed them. "I'll frame him." And enclosed, a photo of Ethan Vale, asleep. The photo of Ethan Vale was recent. Forensic analysis confirmed the timestamp and pillow indentations. He'd been drugged. Someone had reached Ethan inside his federal holding cell. Security footage revealed nothing, until frame-by-frame review uncovered a masked maintenance worker entering Ethan's unit for 3 minutes. No tools. No cleaning gear. Just a camera bag. Trigg had infiltrated the system. The original Watcher had now become the Watched. In New York, a bizarre art show popped up anonymously in a warehouse. The invite-only crowd found dimly lit rooms with rotating displays, screens, mirrors, and real-time feeds. One exhibit featured a sleeping man strapped to a bed. It was Ethan Vale. Live. Drugged. Next to him, a countdown timer. 2:59. 2:58. SWAT teams stormed the building, but it was too late. The feed cut at 0. And Ethan was gone. No body. Just a final image on the wall. A group selfie. With masked figures. Holding up fingers like a camera frame. A video was uploaded to a hidden section of a Sendex hours later. No face shown. Just voice modulation. He started it with a lens. He ended it with a lie. We don't kill. We reflect. If you fear the mirror, it's because you're not ready to see. The screen flickered with dozens of sleeping faces. Celebrities, judges, journalists. All recent. All real. Then a whisper. One blink, and you're framed. Garvey wakes at 3:01 a.m. every night now. Not because she's scared, but because she knows someone might be watching. She's changed her locks. Moved apartments. Lives off-grid. Still, she once found a note tucked under her windshield wiper. It said, "You see clearer in the dark. Thank you for your stillness." No fingerprints. No cameras caught anything. The world has moved on. But the fear remains. Because in every selfie you take, every mirror you glance into, every shutter you hear in the distance, you wonder, am I the next frame? If this case disturbed you, share your thoughts below. How close is society to rewarding attention over morality? Subscribe for more chilling breakdowns, only on True Crime Hub.